everyone, and welcome back to See Arthritis. I'm very happy to be here today with Roxanne Bennett from Concordia University. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we would love if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you're involved in rheumatology.
Yes, so I am a dietitian who does research at Concordia University's Perform Center, which is a research center that specializes in the promotion of healthy lifestyle through education and prevention. So a lot of really fascinating research that's being done with that. And so we're working right now on a larger project on diet and arthritis.
Right, great. And so I know that you presented a poster yesterday on that project. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so our project looked at the association between something called nutritional risk and arthritis in older adults.
Okay.
So what nutritional risk is, it's kind of the step before malnutrition.
Okay.
So it kind of evaluates your risk of malnutrition, because malnutrition is something that's very expensive to diagnose, it's very hard to diagnose, and especially once you get to that point, it's hard to go back. So it's really that nutritional risk is a point at which you want to intervene.
Right.
And so it includes a variety of different questions, especially in older adults, like has your appetite decreased? Have you lost weight? Do you enjoy eating? Do you cook for yourself? And then kind of a few questions about diet quality, but it really kind of englobes the whole experience of eating.
Right.
And so we wanted to see if arthritis would be associated with that.
Yeah.
And our sample was taken from something called the Canadian Longitudinal Study on Aging, which is a huge study. We had a sample of over 40,000 Canadians, and it's representative at the national level.
Wow.
Yes,
That's impressive.
It's a really, really great data set to be working with.
Yeah.
And so what we found is that, yes, arthritis is associated with a greater likelihood of being at high nutritional risk.
Okay.
And beyond that, then we were wondering, based on previous research, is functional impairment something that would be kind of play in that relationship? And functional impairment is kind of having challenges or difficulties to varying extents with basically everyday activities.
Right.
And so what we found is that people who had arthritis and who had functional impairment were at greater likelihood of having nutritional risk.
Okay.
But people who had arthritis and no functional impairment were also at higher likelihood of being at nutritional risk, which indicates to us that there are a lot of other factors probably that are at play. And because there's so little research in that field, we're kind of setting the foundation for more work to be done in that. I think our study is the first, even if it can seem maybe not so surprising to some that nutritional risk would be associated with arthritis, we're the first project, to my knowledge, that kind of shows this at the Canadian level, and to show kind of we're painting a portrait of the fact that there is a problem, and so we need more work to be invested.
Yeah, and it's so important in order to address the problem. Of course, that first step is showing that there is a problem through this great quality research.
Exactly. So that'll push beyond that, more research for perhaps specific types of arthritis. So we looked at both osteoarthritis and various forms of inflammatory arthritis. We can look at people in different cities who have different needs altogether, and then because if you want to do that research, people oftentimes kind of want to know that there is something that they're going to find.
Right.
So we're setting the foundation for future research.
Right. So I know, as you said, this is setting the foundation for future research. Yeah. But do you have any insights to why there might be that relationship between nutritional risk and arthritis?
Yeah, so obviously because of the design of our study, we can't really establish a cause and effect. Right. But from past, having done a lot of research before that to kind of prepare for our project, having arthritis is associated with just a variety of different factors. So obviously you have the physical side, so you can have pain, fatigue, and various symptoms that will cause physical issues. Right. But beyond that, there are psychological impacts of being in pain. There's a financial burden as well.
Especially if you've had to go on work disability or work less hours. Yeah.
Socially as well, there can be. It's really just a very multifaceted condition. Right. And so all of these factors have kind of been associated to varying degrees with just general quality of life, but also somewhat to certain dietary behaviors. So we can kind of, if you look at someone as a whole, you can kind of assess everybody's different, obviously, but to see in general how certain certain elements can impact their diet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that you're looking at it from this holistic lens because it's so important in every disease area, but chronic diseases like especially, and that's really great. So I was wondering, so do you measure nutritional risk? Is it mainly from looking at qualitative measures then? So like asking questions to them about their life and their behaviors?
Yeah, so nutritional risk in this case was assessed by a specific questionnaire called the SCREEN-2, abbreviated. So this is a questionnaire that's been used in senior populations in the past, and it's been validated in that population in the past. So we know it's a pretty good indicator. So nutritional risk it's qualitative. They'll ask questions, and every question will kind of have a score. So it'll be, how has your appetite changed? It's decreased a lot, it's decreased a little. I mean, I'm probably not quoting it perfectly off the top of my head.
The idea.
But it's the idea. There's no really numerical score per se. At the end you get kind of a tally, and then you can identify kind of on the spectrum where they are. And then there's also a cutoff value, so that also kind of helps figure out where your patient would be on that scale.
That's great. I find that those sorts of measures tend to be more accurate than maybe ones that are looking at physical sort of identifiers that are very scientific, biomedical based, but maybe are not capturing the whole picture like your sort of measure would.
Yeah, and these are all of the questions, even if they are kind of more holistic, are associated with these risks. So there's evidence showing that being isolated during mealtime will, if not on the spot, eventually probably lead to lower diet quality and just lower appetite. So there are everything has been validated, but the questions are like really approachable, and they kind of encapsulate the whole experience of eating, because eating is not just what you take in.
Of course.
There's the whole experience around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So can you tell us a bit about another project that you worked on last year to do with barriers to positive food behaviors in the arthritis community? Is that correct?
Yes. So this is also part of the Diet for Arthritis project that we're working on at Concordia. And so what this is to kind of contextualize it. There's more and more research being done on what specific nutrients, what specific diets or foods can maybe help with your arthritis. But I think we don't really spend enough time thinking about how arthritis will impact your diet, because you can give people advice, but if it's not realistic, it's not feasible. When you have arthritis, you have specific symptoms, you have specific needs, and so if you don't take that into account, the recommendations kind of don't serve that purpose, and if not, they can be, in my opinion, kind of more problematic, because if you don't feel like you can reach these recommendations, then you kind of feel like it's a failure on your part, but it's not.
Absolutely.
So what we wanted to do is we had a focus group to understand what these barriers were, just in a variety and in like different levels of different food behaviors, to see what the challenges were. And then beyond that, we wanted to know what, if we were to have a nutrition intervention, what would you want, and what would your needs be, and what would you like us to do? What are your expectations? And from that, we kind of got, it was one of the, I think it was the first research kind of taking that perspective, and it was really fascinating to hear people verbalize those needs. It also kind of put a human side to the whole thing, because diet can oftentimes boil down to numbers, it can be boiled down to statistics, when really these are people and these are their experiences. So it was received really positively. We published that last year. And so that was, I think, once again, a pretty good foundation for more research to be done for that. And hopefully it'll inspire more interventions that are tailored to people's specific needs in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so appreciative of your focus in this area and looking at, understanding the barriers to healthy eating and how and what this is like in the population of arthritis. I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you very much. And so I would be interested to know where you see yourself moving forward. Are you going to be working and continue to work in this area?
I would definitely hope so. So this was part of my master's project. I'm currently working in research. I would like to start a PhD probably in the next 1 to 2 years. It's very likely to continue with this because there's so much work to be done. And even just continuing with our data, we could probably take it so much further. So hopefully I'll be able to kind of advocate for kind of the more comprehensive approach to nutrition in arthritis, and to have interventions and studies be more tailored to the specific needs of the population. So that's hopefully in 10 years that's what I'll be doing.
Right.
Well, hopefully in 10 years I'll be done the PhD.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, that's great. We wish you the best of luck in that area. It is very important to patients like myself, and it sounds like you've really just hit focus on this very important area that seems to not have a lot of other research already done. So thank you very much. And now we'll ask Anita if there are any questions from viewers.
For people, from your personal experience and with this research, for people who want to start keeping track of their diet and nutrition, what are the things that they should track, and are there any resources or tools to help in this process?
So in terms of tracking, obviously this is kind of out of the scope of the research, but I would say to kind of to be very forgiving of yourself as well, because during the focus groups we had a lot of people who felt really helpless when they had fatigue, or let's say I have pain in my wrist because of my osteoarthritis, so I can't chop. So to kind of like find ways that are tailored to your specific needs that still allow you to kind of have a more probably a more whole diet. I mean, less processed foods in general, just to kind of, but to be very forgiving towards yourself and to not necessarily fall prey to all the information online also. So for resources, you can always ask your physician, or you can also talk to a dietitian. I mean, they're there for that. And I think they're a really valuable tool. Nurses as well would be helpful so just to find the people that you can get resources from in your circle, I think would be probably the most important thing.
Right, absolutely. What a great answer. Be forgiving to yourself. I think that is very important for us all to hear. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thank you for having me.